Greetings. I arrive to you once again, and I would like to continue my tale, my presidency. I hope you like it. I've had a rather difficult day dealing episode President. The first thing I did was look at the news. The Whole Sword Post had a rather happy tale. Me speaking of unity. Swordland today spoke of my current reign as president. The National Front Party voted for us, congratulated us, and most of the people in Whole Sword supported us. The Lachavan Times entered in the new assembly. Radical, well, they're liberal. What can I say about them? And the economists, they've admired the infrastructure and solarnomics. Well, and they wanted to end solarnomics. Let us take a look at the reports from our various surrounding countries. Well, I took a look at the reports. Most of them are congratulations. Admiring our people. Lesbia. A beautiful country they are. Then, of course, we had a couple of reports from Lachavan. The port of Lachavan has lost a little importance. That's not a problem. Meanwhile, there's a lack of investment in the small town, or the towns within the province of Aachen. We have various logistical issues, Whole Sword. But let us speak of the current political situation. I'll explain what happened at the meeting in greater detail. Peter Vectern arrived a couple of minutes early and sat across from me, struggling to hold back a smile. We did it, Anton. We won. Finally, all those years with our noses to the grindstone paid off. Peter's eyes sparkled. The strain of the past months had put a damper on his usual rakish charm, but today he was looking and acting more like his old self. He loosened his tie and undid the top two buttons of his shirt. Enjoying the new secretary I picked out for you? Thought you'd appreciate her gorgeous set of talents. It's a shame the rest of your staff aren't as easy on the eyes. He gestured to the slight paunch that protruded over his waistband. But hey, back in university. Did you ever imagine we would be sitting here in the Maroon Palace? We have to celebrate this great victory. Here's what I said. We'll celebrate at the inaugural ball. Just hang in there till the evening. Looking forward to it. Evelyn hopes to congratulate you in person there. I'm sure the kids would love to see their Uncle Peter. Well, good to know. It's been some time since I last saw her. I think it was Frank's birthday. barely had enough time for our families over these past months, haven't we? Peter had a wistful look in his eyes. He and Evelyn had never been able to have kids of their own. During our campaign, the opposition had floated the rumor that he followed illegitimate children during his wilder years, but it had never been substantiated. The door swung open, and Lucien Gallard, my chief strategist, walked in. He was a compact man with sharp, bird-like features. After briefly surveying the room from wall to wall, he sat down, poured a glass of water, and opened his briefcase in a series of quick, graceful movements. Now let me explain what I think of Lucien Gallard. He's a good man. He was a great advisor. He worked for us well. There was nothing I could say there's nothing ill I could say of him. Sure, he wasn't perfect, but he was probably the most trustworthy man. Within the entirety of Solomon. Gentlemen, the tall case clock in the room struck 3 o'clock. Damn, you're exactly on time. Hello, Peter. Lucien then turned towards me. He very slightly bowed his head. I knew, my Lucien. Let's not waste any time, Lucien. Proceed with the overview. As you wish, sir. Lucien spoke in soft, clipped tones that immediately drew my attention towards what he had to say. Peter and I waited for him to proceed. Let's start by evaluating our current situation. The majority of the Swedish people demand change. They're more concerned about the economy than the Constitution. They blame the system for their problems. People are losing their trust in our democracy. Why do you think radicals like Bernard Circus are becoming more popular? Everybody's expecting us to bring the change that the last government did not. Prince Richter, leader of the reformists, believe that true change can only be accomplished by transferring some of our powers to the Assembly. I'll move into the details of their demand shortly. At that moment, I was very concerned. I wanted a true republic. But I also was clearly a nationalist. Giving power to people like Franz Richter, the same type of prissy elements in our society that led us to be destroyed by problems. Well, if we lose power, we won't be able to execute the changes we need to make for the good of the country. It may create issues for us, yes. However, with the reformists gaining more popularity, we may not be in the position to stand against them. Mr. Richter managed to persuade many members of the Assembly to give their support for drafting a new constitution. Reformist politicians are quickly increasing in number. While the reformist wing inside our party is still a minority, they could have tripartisan majority in the Assembly, especially if they're under Franz Richter. They're not wrong. Our party must fall in line with our position, not have a strong divide. True, if our party fractures, it's the opposition that'll benefit. The reformists' demands are clear. They want to limit the president's veto powers, ensure that the Supreme Court is independent, and take away the court's right to vote on constitutional amendments. At that moment, I was strong. I wanted the people to be in charge, but such an idiotic plan. I had a problem with authoritarian leadership back in the past. Maybe, but yes, I admit that I'm a hypocrite in that way. But I may be no different than the people. people I used to have a problem with. However, taking power within this country, under the program of a traditionalist figure, someone who doesn't destroy values integral to the old kingdom, someone who maintains the will of the people. However, otherwise we're no different than previous administrations. I agree we can't ignore the winds of change after all. The old guard will do its best to preserve the Constitution. Chief Justice Hawker, his allied judges, have great influence over the Supreme Court, which will be tough to break. They also have the final say over the Constitution and legislation. Without that approval, we cannot even change it. We'll need some sort of compromise. Give the Supreme Court some power, but limit it. I agree. The old guard won't like this, though. A comprehensive reform that makes the reformists happy would mean maintaining a balance between all branches of government, which means removing your absolute veto as well. Reformists demand all rules in the Constitution are closed. Looks like we have many challenges ahead. This moment I was like... This moment. When I became president, I realized the griefs of it. We can figure it out. Our party still holds 130 out of the 250 seats in the Assembly. We've got the power. However, to reform the Constitution, we must receive a 2/3 majority in the Grand National Assembly, 166 votes, and a simple majority in the Supreme Court that equates to 6 votes. After we have settled on how to proceed, we'll need to talk with our party figures. Our first goal must be to get the 150 signatures needed to start the process. Following the green light from the USB, we'll reach out to the other party leaders to see if they would back our draft. Last step is to convince the justices of the court. The entire process will take a long time, but we must start working with a reform committee to evaluate all possibilities for a new constitution as soon as possible. Work with the old guard to protect our existing presidential powers. Of course, the Constitution should give the president wide-ranging powers to lead Swordwind into the future. That's very bold. Then we must start with eliminating the Supreme Court's authority over constitutional legislation, and perhaps take their immunity away. Don't forget the reformists want us to address the loopholes in the president's veto system. Of course, it'll be looked at in detail. What everyone's expecting is a rebalance of power between the executive, legislative, and judiciary branches. This does include strengthening the Assembly by giving them a chance to override vetoes, as well as ensuring that the judiciary is independent. Can't we avoid strengthening the Assembly? Peter looked troubled. It'll be very difficult to plead that case to the reformists. Taking away the legislative power of the Supreme Court whilst holding your own absolute authority over legislation would look like an attempt to consolidate your own power. We would lose all reformer support. can package it as a democratic reform. The public might be persuaded, but the reformists in the Assembly are not going to fall for that. They tried to paint Hughes yet another strongman, trying to grab more power for himself. The real problem is the judiciary's power, not the president's, and a greedy Assembly. I somewhat agree with you, sir. However, most people will not be persuaded by that. It will be tough to reach the 166 votes needed to propose such a bill. You'd also be burning bridges with both factions. What do you suggest we do then? According to the initial draft we made with the reformists, there are 2 changes to the Constitution that are not open for their discussion. Lucian opened his dossier. First, the Supreme Court will no longer vote on constitutional amendments. Second, the President's absolute veto will be taken away. This can be replaced with a limited veto system by fixing the current loopholes. Look, I'm against the power of the Supreme Court. But the head of state should be a strong figure. I should be like... I hate to sound like a dictator, but I should be like the old king of Swordland. I should have some power in my country. Not all. I don't think it would be appropriate to have. But we can work with the reformists. Yes, sir. Lucian nodded. We'll form a reform committee together with all parties and start reaching out to the stakeholders in the Assembly and the Court for a new constitution. By later in the year, we should have an idea of the reformed contents and what the other parties want. Another important point. You must be aware of the Lotharberg. The oligarchs convene under this organization to influence economic policies. Conrad led it for a long time before falling ill. The new leader is Mr. Walter Tusk. According to reports, some members of the National Business Council are in their pockets. Tusk and the group will surely try to bribe us in exchange for special economic protections. These people are privileged, greedy, and snobby capitalists. This group, they are parasites. There's a difference between a big business and a parasite. A big business does not want power over the government. At least a good one. Although there are very few good ones. We should be able to talk with businessmen. We should not let privilege creep snobby capitalists from this country. Let's not underestimate their influence. These aren't harmless people either. As far as I know, Marcel Conroti has some ties into this group. His influence could definitely be an asset for us, but I'm sure he'll want something in return. The group is dependent on our economic policy. The group's influence is an important focal force, and that we should use to our administration's advantage. If we can get them to side with us, it all depends on what benefits we can offer and what the leader wants. We need to tread carefully on all sides with all power players to survive our term. I need to underline the seriousness of the situation. Our election campaign promised to focus on the military. This was a safe choice. The military and the general staff are a powerful element in the state, and as history tells us, a dangerous one too. The Swedish armed forces represent our pride as a nation, and will be funded as promised. That will ensure they will be on our side unless we do something drastic in the course of our term. Defense Minister Josef Lancia is more loyal to us compared to General Kruger, a fact that obviously can change with our actions. Either way, I see a potential rift between the two, since they are clearly of different minds. If we act strongly against the military, both of those guys will unite against us. I agree with Lucian. We need to tread carefully here. Lucian looked at his watch. Well then, gentlemen, precisely 30 minutes. This concludes our political briefing for today. We'll talk next about our media strategy. Talk to you soon, sir. I'll keep in touch. See you both at the next meeting. They bid their farewells and night, and etc. Everything continued. Let us speak of geopolitical. First of all, Ramberg has been marching south. The Committee for Reforms has been declared. Swordland today. Well, I would like to speak a little more to you. First of all, this is our public opinion report. People need democratic reforms. Apparently, this is all propaganda. I want to unite. I'd love. I simply don't view that as sortish. Enacting democratic reforms will take away the traditional values. As someone who remains against the revolution, and as someone who strongly believes that the forces of the revolution are evil, first things. Our side entering briefing on the current economic situation. Simon Hall, Gus Manger, and Lilius Graf were about to arrive at the White Room for a scheduled economy meeting. This was the room in the Maroon Palace where all important meetings were held. Two assistants arrived first, carrying a heavy projector. They stood with it by the door, waiting for the ministers to enter. From the hallway, I heard Lilius Graf's voice. She was using the patient, almost motherly tone she often took in heated arguments.
Gus, do you really think that such an economically advanced area is more in need of investment than Aachen?
Lilius, my interior minister, strode in. She was clad in shades of brown and beige. The only spot a color of bright yellow Murist star on her necklace. Gus followed close behind. Don't be an idiot, Lilius. What about the unemployment crisis the greater Holsford and Gelsland regions are going through? They're our economic heartland. Gus curled his hands into fist. The Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development's temper hadn't changed since his days in the Alfonso administration, but neither had his reputation for getting things done. His far-reaching network of connections was unlike any other. Simon Hall quickly stepped between the two ministers without looking at either of them. cleared his throat. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, everyone. What's this debate about?
Just a disagreement in internal economic strategy, President Rain.
At that moment, I became suspicious of him. Not sure if I'd call it just a disagreement, Lilius. Well, let's begin the presentation. Yes, I'll move forward with my presentation if no one objects.
Please.
Go ahead. Simon pulled a silk handkerchief out of his pocket and briefly wiped his glasses. My staff and I have comprehensively analyzed every aspect of... He was interrupted from a groan from one of the assistants by the door. Both of whom were now visibly struggling to hold up the heavy projector.
Oh, you can put that there.
He pointed below the painting of President Sol. The assistants placed the projector next to the table and installed a white screen on the wall. Leave now, thank you, and please leave now. The assistants left the cabinet room. I was reminded that Simon had never quite had a way with people, but his facility with numbers had made him the most sought-after economic specialist within all Swordland. He started looking for his slides. He always carried documentation around with him. I waited. Lilius leaned towards the table and spoke. Now, before I tell you about Lilius, Gus, and Simon, I'll explain. Lilius is this very suspicious politician. I've never truly trusted her. But I sort of do. A sweet tone. Time. Meanwhile, we have people like Gus Mantra. Absolute chat. Wonderful. But I'm glad that there are rural developments.
Simon, what happened to the new police station constructed in Estoril?
All going through his briefcase, he paused for a moment to answer. It got stalled due to a government property boundary issue. I've been meaning to look at it.
I can take a look at that one. Estoril needs all the security. Help it can get.
Sure. More time for me to spend on analysis. His eyes glittered when he finally found the slides he was looking for. There have been some developments about the Swordish Wren losing further value today. We've been trying to stabilize it with a central bank. The recession of 51 put enormous pressure on the economy, resulting in the collapse of the value of our currency. The entire situation was a significant cause of concern for our administration. Since economics is your forte, Mr. Rain, it's possible that you might have already be aware of the data. I can still explain the current economic situation in better detail. It's our GDP and debt situation. Our current GDP is 310 billion Swordish Wren. The national debt is 427 billion. It's still hard to fathom that we lost nearly 150 billion in wealth. The past 3 years were tough. What's our unemployment and inflation rate? Unemployment has skyrocketed, and it's now a staggering 16%, and the inflation is at a relative high of 7%.
Unemployment is increasing crime and drug use. We need to get people off the streets. The inflation isn't helping our average citizen either.
Current status, so the status of the recession is. The economy has been in a recession of about negative 6% in the past years. The average GDP dropped from 15,000 Swedish ren to around 10,000 Swedish ren from 1951 to now. This administration's success depends on our ability to stop the recession. The sooner we can reach GDP growth, the better. I have all the information needed. Let's move on to economic strategy. Simon scattered the paper stack in front of him in an orderly manner and took a final look at his notes before clearing his throat. As you see, the situation is alarming, but not everything is negative. The extensive privatization program of Alfonso left us a large budget surplus, which we can use to stabilize the crisis. The primary subject we need to settle on is what general path we'll take in our turn. Solonomics-based nationalization happened in the 30s, and Alfonso's privatization began during the end of the 40s. One of our main promises was to promote a planned economy to stop the recession. To be frank, I still don't think this was a good idea. We shouldn't go back to Solonomics. It's the reason of our recession. Self-sufficiency would help us in tough times. Simon ignored the statement. Economic systems without regulation are bound to fail. Obviously, there's some regulation in all the existing systems, otherwise it would be anarchy. No one wants a chaotic society. From taxes to the standard of goods, there are many elements that regulate all aspects of the system.
But is it enough? I doubt it. If we can manage to plan more aspects of the economy, our chances of success will increase with a talented team like ours.
The structural problems of Solonomics were going to lead to a recession according to the predictions at the time anyways. Either way, even if we pick one of the doctrines, we'd retain the option to make economic choices on a case-by-case basis.
That is, however, not recommended in my point of view. The last thing we need is a chaotic economic plan.
Finally, something we can both agree on.
There is another important point, which has a direct impact on our economy. Superpowers. We've done well not aligning ourselves with any of them.
Economically speaking, an isolationist policy can only work if we work to reap the benefits of both spheres in their rivalry. This is a very dangerous attempt, but it is still possible.
We must be very cautious. There are schemes being devised about Swordland. We cannot give in to their wants, now or in the future. Otherwise, our country will turn into a pawn.
Swordland will not be controlled by any nations.
Precisely, my lord. We'll stand strong and show an example to the world.
I hope we won't regret this. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Minister Whiskey will be in charge of informing on these types of foreign policy decisions. We must first decide on our internal economic plan. Simon put forward a legal document outlining the possibilities with both economic doctrines listed. The cabinet members looked at me. Honestly, we have to thank and his planned economy for the world. It clearly shows the success of the system.
Precisely the reason why we should stick to the old system. State planning and regulation both showed great success in the 30s.
Only for a limited time, until even Tarquin Sol himself discovered the limits of the system. The slowdown began during his rule, when the planned economy focused bring us stronger allies.
It would make United Contana diplomatically look at our country in a more positive light. They're proponents of the planned economy.
The influence Arcasia has on the world's economy is extensive. Our economic strategy should be based on eternal reasoning, though. What's on our long-term economic schedule? Picking a construction company, trade relations, tax reforms, and welfare privatization or nationalization initiatives would be some of them. We must choose wisely and remember that the free market economy, in all forms, is the future of the world.
I wouldn't be so sure.
Let's move on.
What are your final thoughts then, Mr. President?
Critical institutions must remain in state control, must be fully responsible for delivering services. I tell you this as well. If something goes wrong, we'll be blamed. We cannot divert ourselves. We should be responsible for our own success or failure.
If you could, and it wouldn't be negative. But either way, you make the choices.
So, what will our general economic plan provide? Plan the economy as we promised. Not sure if we made the right decision here. Now that there's a clarity on which direction we are heading, I'll work on a good plan accordingly. This concludes our meeting. At our next gathering, we'll talk about the upcoming infrastructure investment plan. Now that the economic direction is taken, the ministers disperse for lunch and policy. I myself don't do it. New Armadine Industries. Apparently, there's apparent nationalist violence bullshit. I don't believe it. Freezing temperatures recorded while an economy meeting held in Holstein. Yeah. Invest in mega infrastructure. I believe we should invest in a mega infrastructure project. Lucian and Peter arrived at my office to talk about recent developments and the media strategy. They both took their seats across from me. Lucian put his reading glasses and quickly went over some documents. Peter turned to Lucian and nodded. Apologies for the background noise, by the way. I don't mind it. Well, anyways. Let's begin. First of all, Lucian, you mentioned that Marcel Caronti contacted you. The Carontis have always been known as one of the richest and most influential families in Swordsland. Marcel was no exception. He was the oldest son of Konrad Kronti, the industrialist and media mongol who followed HOS, the Heart of Swordland Corporation. The richest man in the entirety of Swordland. The richest man should be the president. Should be the president, honestly. I thought that earlier as well. Lucian turned to me. He's offered to meet with you, Mr. President. What does he want? Well, why is Conrad sending his son? He, unfortunately passed away today. After the passing of his father, may he rest in peace. Marcel aims to become the next CEO of the HOS conglomerate. He mentioned a productive collaboration. They're a powerful and influential media conglomerate. To start with, they own the Swordland Today newspaper, the Swordland Broadcasting, which means it would be wise to have them by our side. What does this productive collaboration entail? He did not want to explain the details over the phone, but rather in person. I believe I'll be receiving a call from him sometime soon. However, as Peter said, they have substantial power over the content of media outlets, headlines, radio shows. That is what he would be offering. What he wants in return is what we need to understand. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, let's determine our general approach to media. I'm no media expert, but Lucian made some very interesting arguments at the preparation meeting yesterday. There are two ways we can approach the media. One of them is by influencing it, which has clear advantages. The other one is keeping it independent. It's a tool to be used. You don't expect the rabbit, do you? I agree. Media plays a huge role in adapting public opinion towards our views and policies, whilst helping us avoid damage from scandals or mistakes. Whilst I do acknowledge that this will sound a bit harsh, I certainly believe that our perspective, knowledge, and experience allows us to have superior judgment compared to the average Swordish citizen. I fully share your opinion. I concur. Even if we don't use it, we should be able to have power. You both are aware of my certain expertise with public opinion sway. I'll make sure the media is on your side. Do not at the door. Please come in. Livia Suna, my new secretary, entered the office. Her dark curls bounced as she crossed the room to my desk. She spoke with a slight lift in her voice.
Excuse me, Mr. President. Mr. Galad's secretary has been calling me and wanted to relay a message. Marcel Coronti, the new CEO for HOS Conglomerate, is on the line with Mr. Galad.
Well, the ball's in our court right now. Would you like to talk to him, sir? Or would you like me to? I'll talk to him.
Right away. It's online.
She left the room and the phone started ringing. Picked up the phone. It's a pleasure, Mr. Coronti. Pleasure's all mine. I understand your time's valuable, so I won't waste any. I was just elected CEO of HOS. My strategy of running this conglomerate will be different than my father's approach. That's why I'm offering a partnership deal regarding our media branch. I would like to formally invite you to my resort near Conrad for a meeting to discuss the details. What does that entail? Our future as partners, Mr. President. Surely we can't talk about the details on the phone. I just wish to have a face-to-face conversation with you. I'll send you the details towards my secretary if you are interested. Thank you for the offer. I'll meet. You will not be disappointed, I promise. Well then, I'll let you return to your packed schedule. See you later, Mr. President. See you later, Mr. Caronte. I hung up. We'll set things up right away. Expect a worthwhile meeting next month. So then, forward to next month. Wonder if he has a pool. It appears we're done for today. We'll continue later. See you soon. The next thing I did immediately was to head towards La Java, beautiful city that was. The seaside state residence, fittingly named the Blue Mansion, was large, fine, and accommodating. But enjoying the luxurious mansion wasn't the main reason of our visit. We gathered the economic team here to discuss the new infrastructure investment project. Half an hour has already passed since the start of the meeting. Unfortunately, I didn't even have the chance to have my usual afternoon coffee. Looking at the views from the windows, I let my mind drift for a couple of seconds. Simon's voice brought me back into the ongoing discussion. Mr. President, we need to focus on boosting the economy as quickly as possible. One of the fastest ways to achieve this is through infrastructure projects. I simply nodded. On the one hand, businessmen are complaining about the slow logistical rail network between Holsord and La Java. On the other hand, citizens are criticizing the lack of a proper highway construction between La Java and Arvi. The narrow roads by the seaside are not only dangerous, but also difficult to traverse. We'll need the citizens and their demands matter most. Their demands are just. The dire situation of the road infrastructure between La Java and Arvi cannot be neglected. The return in investment will be low. Our concern should be economic growth. It's not just the business people that suffer, but the ordinary folk. What really matters, though, is that we can accomplish something tangible in your first economic act. In my first economic act. Our first economic act. We must prove the economy of the nation and bring it out of recession. Therefore, I find two important projects for your attention: the H3 Highway Project and the L1 High-Speed Railway Project. Mr. Hall repositioned himself on the chair to take a more comfortable posture. The ministry can support one project at a time with the current capacity and budget. Let's move on to the details of each. So which one do you want to hear about first? About the rail. Your predecessor, Alfonso, has failed to deliver on this campaign promise. But now we have the opportunity to start the construction of the groundbreaking railway project. As you know, our
current trains cannot meet the standards of today. As many other countries adopt this new electric engine technology to power up their trains, we fall one step behind. News about new electric trains in United Antonu have piqued the business interest. They too want to transport resources and material from Holsord and Lachava with great speed and efficiency. Well, I'm not fully convinced yet. Please explain further. Our plan is to upgrade the old L1 line from Holsord to Lachava. It'll transform to a high-speed rail. Gus was painting at Holsord, attentively. The planned construction starts right here at the capital. It will go to Anrika first. Sorry about that. And then connect to Gelsord. After which it will read Lachava, our economic powerhouse. The L1 will significantly boost the economy in the newly linked cities. I continued. I believe in rural Heartland. I think that that's a good idea. You're talking about the wealthiest regions and forgetting about Arnhem, which needs it more. The mayor of Anrika, Curtin Lest, also requested this project to be prioritized. Businessmen in the region will be very content, which increases investment and employment. Therefore, I will recommend the L1 high-speed rail project. I'd like to hear the other project. The H3 project aims to improve the abysmal state of the road network in the Aachen region, bordering Aachen. This area is home to several million Aachen-Sordish and Sordish feel neglected. There are no proper highway connections. Well, let the others continue. I agreed. Most agreed with me. Ilias was pointing at Lachava. The H3 highway starts here and will lead to Lenkirk. Then it will go all the way to Arvik. As a result, the road network towards the Agnolian capital, Stalport, will improve substantially. She paused and leaned forward in that chair. I saw the central government continuously neglect the Agno-Sordish-dominated region when I was mayor. Will we continue that type of negligence? They're equal. We should respect them as well. I'm for all Sordish citizens without separation of preference, therefore we should think about the country overall. It's been pointed out that the highway will be less beneficial in the near term. I have to disagree. It'll improve the speed of transportation throughout the region. Our citizens will be quite pleased if we successfully accomplish this. Besides, if we enter trade talks with Agnolia, then we'll see the investments as a positive sign. I have settled on a decision. Excellent. What will my final choice be? I've decided on the H3 highway project to improve the infrastructure in our Pora region. Thank God, I knew that you'd see reason. The negotiations will begin in the middle of this year. You'll be able to award the contract to a corporation of your choice. The ministry estimates that the entire construction will finish in 2 years if every step going forward is executed successfully. Thank you all for your
contribution and thoughts.
See you soon, Mr. Rain.
Have a nice day, Mr. President. Evening settled in beautiful coastline of Macau. Well, there ends this video. This is my first. Although I could make it a little more. Campaign finance bill. The criteria for the allocation of public funds, blah 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 blah. Yes. Absolutely. Invest in Arcasian company stocks. Let us buy 1,000 shares. I want to take some risks. Radical. Proxy Democrats. Yes. Mutual trade. Conrad. Blah 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 blah. Now let us continue with I shall continue with the inaugural ball tomorrow. Well, in the next episode. Until then, I would like to say, Ammonia was caught. Vectern sister. Goodbye from the present.